Welcome back to the Overplayed podcast, the home of sports and sports gaming in your ear every single Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, live on Twitch at Overplayed Pod. Or if you're listening on the audio format, you can catch us on Thursdays around 3 p.m. Eastern on your favorite podcast app, whether it's Spotify, Apple Music, Mick Foley's, podcast app. Just kidding. That's what Mills was dreaming about yesterday. But my name is GoodGameBro, one half of this show. The other half, for now, because we have maybe another host coming very soon. The other half is Mills.
I like how you say maybe another host coming soon after last week. You were like, hey, there's a third host coming.
I mean, because we were like, it's
I'm so patient,
but you got to pump the brakes. It'll be a little bit on that one. But yeah, Mills, how are you?
Wait. Are you talking about pumping the brakes? Who has to pump the brakes here? Who was the one all gung-ho, pants fired up all around the place like, third host coming? And then I was like, no, we should chill. And then now you're all like, oh, well, maybe another host, maybe something else. Maybe we're doing this, maybe we're doing that. Maybe they're asking for headshots for us at some point because y'all look good and my beard's overgrown. So, like, what am I supposed to send, huh? What am I supposed to send?
Mills, you have an incredibly expensive camera, literally a foot and a half from your face. Use that and take some headshots.
This is here. You ready?
Okay. Oh, sorry, I was vomiting.
It's audio medium, and here I am. I mean, I know we're live, but audio medium, and I'm posing in front of the camera.
Mills, other than wearing a beanie indoors, I'm sure it's cold out there in your side in the DMV. But what have you been up to this weekend?
3 words, 1 piece of weather, 1 number, and 1 thing that I have to do very regularly because I have irritable skin. Rainbow Six Extraction. Okay, unbelievable game. I'm enjoying the hell out of it. I've seen it get like kind of good and bad reviews depending on who you talk to. I saw some of the more advanced FPS reviewers kind of slamming it for, I'm going to guess honestly, for it being PvE. I think PvE immediately gets knocked down a peg with a lot of FPS guys because, okay. I mean, let's be fair. Oh, that was very audible. I apologize. I get it. Like you don't get to fight against other humans, and that's a knockoff for a lot of people. But this game was put out for co-op PvE. It reminds me so much of GTFO. It has all of Siege's mechanics in it. I think the AI is very good at what it does. I love the roster management. If you lose an operative in a mission, you don't get access to that operative anymore. You have to go back into another mission and save them as part of the 3-tiered mission system. I love it, man. It's a 3-player co-op against like aliens. I use Sledge. I use Alibi. We fought against, myself and 2 members of my community fought against what's called a Protean, which ends up being a alien version of one of your operatives that has been captured because they can absorb and get knowledge of their powers and everything. It's kind of cool. I had a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, I've been intrigued, and I know it's on Game Pass, so like I downloaded it and then I uninstalled it because I watched a couple of streams and I think it got me interested, but it didn't hook me. And so like I think the other part of the problem I have is that I know with their games, a lot of times they will launch a game and it's at its like base version that they have. And I know it's kind of like what you expect when you play what's the other like a Battlefield, right? Where Battlefield launches and then that game's really good 12 months from launch. It's not so great at launch. This one is different in that it'll be solid, I feel like, at launch for my expectations. And then a year from now, it'll be like, wow, they put in an insane amount of updates and now I want to play it.
Yep.
I feel like that's where I'm going to be with Rainbow Six Extraction.
It's funny you mentioned that because I mentioned on the show a couple times with Ghost Recon Breakpoint that I've gone back to it, and the updates they've done over the last year or so have made the game so much better, so much more immersive. The enemy AI updates, the immersive mode, all of these different things, just a fantastic set of updates. And Ubisoft is, I don't know if we call them good for this or if it's a weird kind of behavior. Whenever they put out a game, with the exception of the Assassin's Creed series, I think the Assassin's Creed is pretty even keel. But anytime they put out a game, like, it's going to get better as it goes, no matter what your initial impression. Division 2 is a fantastic A fantastic way of showing that, because Division 2 was kind of panned a little bit when it came out, and now it's like the epitome of looter shooter for a lot of people. So
Yeah, for sure. For me, I've been playing Super People, so we're putting a ton of time in. I jumped into Escape from Tarkov and maybe team
I
killed
saw
on accident. I blame Tim. Who do you blame, me or Tim in that clip?
that is 100% your fault. I'm so, like Tim. So Tim is notorious for bad comms. I'm just gonna say it. Tim is 100% one of the worst comms I've ever seen, and he likes to go off and do his own thing. That kill was on you. That kill was 100% on you.
I beg to differ. The funny thing to me though is like you look at that clip and the timing of like and the positioning of where I am. I literally can't see the enemy that he sees on the other side of the fence, and it's like Jen moves into frame, and I'm like, oh yeah, right there, I got him. I'll shoot him, and then
I mean,
I hear Doug.
Let's be fair. Anytime you get into a game with Genticles, Tim, Pool Shark, Lupo, that entire crew, like anyone in that group, team killings on the board.
Yeah, I'm still blaming Tim. I'm hashtag blame Tim over here. But yeah, I've been big on those and watched a lot of sports this weekend, man. Good God, do we have stuff to talk about this week?
Yeah, not even just NFL. Like NBA was fantastic this weekend too. It felt like one of the better sports weekends going. So with that being said, let's get right into it. We talk about the NFL, we talk about the NBA, but let's talk about UFC 270. Francis Ngannou. Absolutely, and I don't think we didn't know this at the time, right? We didn't know about the MCL, ACL issue at the time. Fought on a torn MCL, injured ACL, won, and now is getting, chirped at by John Jones in the background, but we'll talk about that here in a second. Describe to me, and seeing the fight that he had too, this was not an easy fight for him. Describe the fight, how you feel Ngannou performed under these conditions.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. I think Francis Ngannou, there's a lot to love about him. I think when you look at a lot of fighters, there are varying degrees of personalities on fighters and how you feel about them. I love John Jones. I'm the first person to tell you, I get why people don't like John Jones. If you don't like Francis Ngannou, I just don't know if you know how to judge human beings from what we know. Francis Ngannou's story is incredible. His journey is incredible. How he cares about other fighters has been incredible. So rumors had come out that he was having, there was potentially a knee issue, right? And so his trainer out of his camp, who is a fantastic interview, if you watch any of the interviews with his trainer, his trainer had basically come out and said like, well, I don't put out footage of my training camps or my fighters or whatever, which he's really stuck to over the course of his career. But people were hearing rumors of like, oh, Francis has a knee issue or whatever, because he's wearing like double wraps on some of his knees sometimes, but he walks around like essentially the Incredible Hulk. Man had to your point, what we just talked about, had a torn MCL, an injured ACL. To what degree, we don't know, but he's having surgery. The report came out officially today and said he's down essentially 2-0 in those first two rounds. And Francis Ngannou, from everything you've known, even if you're a casual fan, you know that he's a massive human being who has massive punching power. And historically, he had relied on that until maybe the Stipe Miocic fight, where he snubbed a couple of takedown attempts at that point. And you're like, this dude has ground game now. Francis showed fantastic ground game and did all of this fighting the last fight on his contract with a torn MCL. How many fighters with a torn MCL and an injured ACL are going to risk the last fight on their contract, which is being paid criminally underrated? He made $600,000. Cyril Gane made $500,000.
Yeah.
So the defending champ, who successfully defends his title, makes $100,000 more than the guy that he just fought against, and they're making pennies in the dollar compared to what they should be essentially making. All the circumstances, it's just wild to me.
The more I hear from, and I don't mean to bring this name up in the UFC conversation, but the more I hear from Jake Paul about really want to step up for these fighters, and again, he's got his own agenda for sure, but he has a very good point. These fighters are being used as contractors and essentially gladiators by Dana White right now. Unless you go top tier and make your own name, the people that are getting paid top tier are not the ones winning big fights. They're the ones outside the ring talking trash. The John Joneses of the world, the, bring it up again, Conor McGregors of the world. As little as I think of Jake Paul for some of his opponent choices and the way he handles himself, I will say what he has been stating to Dana White is very much shown by the paydays you just show with Francis Ngannou and Gane there as well. Even Gane, like you're in a heavyweight title fight, like that's pennies on the dime to what you should be making. And then you talk even more about Ngannou having a torn MCL and injured ACL. This isn't the Ngannou we're used to. This was not the Ngannou we're used to. You're right. The Siopich fight kind of changed that. But this was an extremely grapple-heavy event. Like, they were on top of each other a lot. Do you think that was strategy by Ngannou because he couldn't explode on that knee? Or do you think that was just that's the way the fight was going to go against Gane?
I think there would have been a degree of which you're going to see grappling. I think when you have heavyweights who are both that skilled, I mean, Gane was coming in, 10-0? I think that was his first blemish in his actual record coming into that fight. When you're seeing a dude like that, you're always going to have a hesitancy, and I think it's better for Francis to be more well-rounded, especially in his ground game. Absolutely. If you get that dude into a ground and pound position where he can absolutely destroy you, God bless you. Good luck getting out of that one, I think, at that point. But you definitely saw a different side. It was a much more slower pace, and I think what Francis probably wanted it to. He probably wanted to be a little bit more aggressive, but he just couldn't be that at that point because, again, your MCL is injured. Your MCL is torn. Your ACL is injured. Your range of movement, your explosiveness, your side-to-side pivoting is not there. So I'm really surprised he was able to not only finish the fight but win the fight. Like that to me is just it speaks volumes to him and. Pay that man. Yeah, pay that man significantly like he deserves.
And to your point, Ngannou expanding his role, especially in the heavyweights, where more so than any other weight class, the heavyweights, one shot can be the difference. Like most of those heavyweights that are in the UFC, all have knockout power in one punch. It's not a setup. They can clip you and put you down. Ngannou would be, would serve himself well to learn a little bit more of the grappling like he did in this fight. I think Ngannou is going to be around once he comes back from this MCL, ACL. I think they're saying 6 to 8 months just to get back on his feet. How old is Ngannou now? I mean, he's getting there, I think.
Ngannou 34, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, Francis Ngannou is 35. So I mean, and he's turning 36 this year, so it's he's getting up to that point. I think heavyweights tend to go a little longer than some of the other ones do. Anyway, it's gonna be interesting to see what Ngannou does after this fight. I think you get your tomato can first fight back, kind of even though it's a chance. Well, that's a problem. He's got the belt on him. You can't tomato can a title fight. So
I think they're going to interim. They're going to do an interim fight because Ngannou's going to take his time to make sure he's 100% healthy, and then. They want to do everything they can to shaft him. Let's not forget, Dana White didn't put the belt on him. It wasn't Dana White who put the belt on Francis Ngannou because Francis Ngannou was spending the week prior leading up to the fight talking about fighter pay, equality within the UFC and how they're not doing anything to that degree. And then let's also not forget that Dana White didn't even show up to the post-fight press conference at all. He's so mad that Francis won. He wanted him to lose. He doesn't get his way.
Well, Stipe Miocic waiting in the wings. That's Dana's guy. So. We'll see what happens. Going on with sports this weekend, what an unbelievable NFC divisional round. I didn't think as much of the Buccaneers-Rams game. I was a fan of the way it went. I love that it went down to the end of the game. But there was something missing. I guess I've been cultured to love explosive offense, and there wasn't a ton of explosive offense in this game, somewhat because Tom Brady was missing a lot of his weapons, somewhat because Matthew Stafford has been inconsistent at best the last few weeks, but he comes through in the clutch, deep throw to Cooper Kupp over the top, sets up the game-winning field goal. Questions now are the Rams' chances against the upstart 49ers, and where does Tom Brady go from here?
This is wild. I will say, though, as much as, Stafford has had his issues a little bit in the postseason, he's been, I think, better than what I thought he was going to be coming in from really no playoff experience when he was in NFL Siberia in Detroit. I feel like I'm calling multiple cities a week Siberia versions of their sport, but that's a conversation for later. But I think the big things for me with that game were it was more so about the collapse of the Rams in clutch time than it was anything else. Cam Akers had the fumble. Cooper Kupp, I think, had the fumble on the sideline as well. There was a massive case of lemon booty for the LA Rams that week, and I just think that's something that you have to watch going into this week. The 49ers game was weird to me just because sorry, we'll talk about that in a second. But Brady, for example, people are saying that he might retire. I don't think he's going to retire. I don't know about you, but I think Brady's the master of social media right now from an NFL standpoint. He is the best social media game of any NFL player right now, not even close. And I think they're doing the whole like, oh my God, is Tom Brady gonna retire? There's no shot that Tom Brady goes out without having the ability for the NFL to pay him his dues of saying like, thank you, Tom, thank you, Tom. It's the retirement tour. It's what Kobe got. Brady absolutely wants that. He's going to wait and he's going to do this dramatic announcement where everyone thinks he's retiring, but he comes back for one final round. But I look, I think the Rams are going to be fine. My Brady hate aside, if you saw me typing in all caps on Twitter this weekend, I think the Rams are going to be fine. This is the best possible matchup for them. If you told them, because you play the 49ers or the Packers, they choose the 49ers all day because they're going to be in there getting Jimmy G all day. And yes, that defense is going to be tough for the 49ers, but they'd rather play that defense with their weapons than I think go against the offense of the Packers and have to solve for that.
This year, the Rams, obviously in the division with the Niners, played the Niners twice. The final scores of those games were 31-10 and 27-24. Both 49ers wins. I believe one of those was a Trey Lance win, not a Jimmy Garoppolo. So the 49ers know what they're getting themselves up against. I will say the 49ers are playing the best football of any team that is still in the playoffs right now, including the Chiefs. The Chiefs showed on defense, even against a monster like the Bills. I thought the Chiefs defense showed some real flaws. I think the 49ers are playing a very good run control, clock control game on offense. Their defense is outstanding right now, and the way they took it to Dallas, who is a high-powered offense and a turnover-rich defense, the fact that they absolutely smacked Dallas in that game is a showing of just how hot they are. And this is another story of a wild card team making it in the NFL playoffs, getting hot at the right time, like so many wild cards before them.
Are you picking them?
I'm
picking them to win.
I am this close. I'm not going to say it yet. I am very close to saying the 49ers, who are 3.5-point underdogs in LA. They've already beat LA twice. One of the hardest things to do is beat a team 3 times in a season.
Yep.
Matter of fact, you and I have had that conversation about the Steelers and the Ravens multiple times.
Yep.
It's so much harder for a divisional opponent. But this is a team without Robert Woods right now. This is a team that is showing massive flaws on defense. They have Jalen Ramsey, and if they don't get to the quarterback, their defense is not as good as advertised. The rest of their secondary has been, let's put it this way, Eric Weddle's starting for them. Weddle is starting for them. Okay, that tells you how the rest of their secondary has been, and he wasn't that good in that game against Tampa Bay. I will say this, talking on the Tom Brady front, he said he was going to play until he's 45. That was his words when he was in New England. Okay, things change, obviously. He's 44 right now. You're absolutely right. This dude is not retiring on a loss like that, where they almost came back 28-3 from the Falcons, 27-3 from the Rams. Everyone was calling it out. I can't believe he brought that team back. And let's not forget that they're without Chris Godwin injured, Mike Evans nagging injury, Gronkowski's had nagging injuries, offensive line, Antonio Brown out because you can call it CT, you can call it crazy, whatever you want to call it. Tristan Wirfs, his main pass blocker on that line was inactive for that game. That was a massive announcement an hour before the game. I can't believe they knew Wirfs was going to be out before at that point. The fact that all of that happened, plus, again, Fournette, highly ineffective since coming back from the injury. All of those things put together, and Tom Brady still brought his team down from a 27-3. Imagine when he gets weapons next year, because you know they're not going to rest on their laurels.
I've had more than half of my life has been filled with Tom Brady, and I'm
getting one more year. You're getting one more year, brother. While your team sits there with Dwayne Haskins, Mason Rudolph, and whatever rookie they decide to draft, that's what they're going to do for the Steelers. Just remember that. While you're doing that, Tom Brady is somewhere getting piece after piece fed to him as another weapon.
I hate it here.
But yeah, let's talk about the other side of this. We mentioned the 49ers beating the Packers. Bad weather game. That shouldn't be an issue for the Packers, but their offense did not show up. Aaron Rodgers did not have a great game. Their running game, surprisingly, what was good for them, Aaron Jones had like 120 receiving yards in the first half. Somehow or another, they went away from Aaron Jones in the second half, started throwing the ball around, and that's where the 49ers decided, hey, we can do this. 49ers, again, ball control offense. Deebo Samuel is just slowly and surely. I think everybody before this season thought Brandon Ayuk was that guy. I obviously did. I drafted him in a couple of fantasy leagues, but as a receiver, Ayuk looks like that guy. Deebo Samuel has stepped up and turned into the next Cordarrelle Patterson, where he's a threat on the outside, he's a threat in the backfield, he's a threat pretty much everywhere. And we're seeing that more and more in the NFL copycat league, where you have that one player that you jump around the offense, which has been kind of exciting, kind of cool, things you don't see in the older days.
Well, it's what they tried to do with Percy Harvin when Percy Harvin came into the NFL, because Percy Harvin coming out of Florida played running back, he played wide receiver, he played literally anything you could do to get him the ball on offense. Percy Harvin was doing. Then obviously the migraine issues that he had really kept it from being a predominantly good NFL player, where he was missing so much time. But when I see Deebo, it's a much more physical version. I mean, Percy was still jacked out of his mind, but he was a little bit shorter. Deebo's got a little bit more height to him. Deebo's also like not as good of a runner, I think, as Percy. Percy hit some of the greatest speed we've seen in a long time. But Deebo's what I think people thought Percy Harvin was going to be in the NFL. When it makes me also cry as an older person of like, what if Reggie Bush played today?
Yeah.
Like, can you just... It makes me sad. But yeah, the 49ers go as far as that defense and Deebo Samuel can carry them. There is no shot, though, that I trust Jimmy G. Everybody that's talking about quarterback wins and all these different things, stop it. Jimmy G is just objectively not a quarterback that's going to win you a game. And Shanahan has done a fantastic job around scheming him and doing things right to make sure that he puts him in a position and I have to throw the ball deep. But more often than not, Jimmy G has left some terrible throws out there. And I'm like, thank God that's not my team. I know I might have Mason Rudolph as a quarterback, but thank God that's not my team.
If I put the Rams and the Packers in the NFC Championship game, who'd you pick?
I went Rams. For my picks, I went Rams.
Did you?
For that one. Yeah.
So you think the Rams are a better team than the Packers? See, I think the other way. I think the Packers are a way better team than the Rams. I think that is showing just how well-oiled that San Francisco team is playing right now. I think that San Francisco team is going to surprise a lot of people this weekend. I think they're going to blow the Rams out of the water. I really do. I think they've got the defense. They know Cooper Kupp's coming. They've got the secondary to be able to cover him. They're not worried about Odell Beckham Jr. They've got a couple of big secondary people, something Green Bay does not have to match up against Odell. And let's be fair, all they have to do is feed it to Kittle. Green Bay is terrible against the tight end, has been terrible against the tight end, and they've got just enough wrinkles in that Shanahan offense. I do think San Francisco gets up big, up early, and then just grinds the clock down, because San Francisco's defense is better than LA's defense right now. Right now, San Francisco is better. We'll call it Alabama versus Georgia. LA is Alabama. They've got the stars on their defense. San Francisco is Georgia. They're the more well-rounded defense. They don't have necessarily the stars. They do have some stars there, obviously, Bosa and those guys, but they are more well-rounded. They're better all over the place, and they play like it too. Whereas I think I feel like the Rams play piecemeal. I think there's a lot of blown coverages in that backfield. I think San Francisco is going to take advantage of it.
I think we're going to see Jalen Ramsey have a definitive game, either poorly or greatly here.
Yeah.
Jalen made some weird effort plays where like he was there, but he didn't do that like extra like gear that you usually see Jalen do, where he makes a stunning play. And you're like, best corner in football.
Yep.
I really feel like I can't really bet too much against Aaron Donald. Aaron Donald has been a man possessed in these playoffs and just getting unbelievable pressure, even with 2 or 3 people guarding him. Von Miller's looked good coming off the edge, and the attempts that they've had him coming there too. I feel like this is going to come down to they're going to have to force San Francisco. I think it's a within 7-point game, so it'll be within 7 points. But I really think it's going to come down to Jimmy G having to make a throw, and I just don't trust him. I trust Stafford more than I trust Jimmy G. I'm going. Jimmy G makes a late mistake. Shanahan tries to have some cutesy little play, and the Rams end up winning because of that. That's where I'm going to go with. That's my prediction.
Last question before we move on to the AFC. Is Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay to start next season?
No, he's going to be in Denver. I
Denver.
wholeheartedly think he's in Denver.
Denver is a fantastic place for him. I think they've got a lot of really good weapons. Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, Devontae Williams is in their backfield. They've got an aging defense, but a couple of good players. Surtain is on that defense, so would be an interesting landing spot for him. I don't think he'll be in Green Bay, even though LaFleur went out of his way to make sure everyone knew they want him back. Like that. Oh yeah, this organization wants Aaron Rodgers back. That's normally a sign of problem. I'm sorry, when you have to come out that early and be like, oh yeah, bring him back, that means you're not thinking you're going to get him back. And I think Green Bay is getting ready for that rebuild real soon. Let's talk about the AFC. Two teams that are not in a rebuild anytime soon are going to meet up, and that's the Bengals traveling to Kansas City. The Bengals beating the Chargers. I'm making this joke again. I'm sorry. It's every time on Twitter. By the way, I'm doing this new thing on Twitter where I purposely put out a piece of misinformation in sports and watch how quickly people are like, excuse me, sir, it's not there. And I'm just like, whatever.
Oh, so like your takes on the show?
No, my takes on the show, I believe. So the Bengals win, last second field goal. Burrow it was destroyed all night. All right, every time he snapped the ball, I think he got sacked 9 or 10 times by the Titans. The Titans defense is awful. I'm sorry, it is. And their passing game is not much better. You bring in a guy like Julio Jones, you have a top 5 receiver like A.J. Brown, and you've got Ryan Tannehill trying to throw the ball 30 yards. It is embarrassing. Derrick Henry didn't look like himself, I will say that, but he looked good enough to be on the field. There should have been more Foreman on the field for sure. That being said, I'm gonna bring this down to a play call here for you. The Titans had third and about inches, and they call a gun read option that Tannehill keeps and immediately gets his S kicked in the second he looks up. So we're clear, the person he kept it from was Derrick Henry, who didn't get touched until he was at the line of scrimmage on that read option. So Tannehill, just an awful play call, first of all, coming in from Vrabel. Then on fourth down, they do a regular just HB dive, 5 yards from the backfield. Derrick Henry lined up, and the whole team knows what's coming. Derrick Henry gets dogpiled 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage. The Bengals defense is good, okay? I'm not going to question that. The Bengals offense is fantastic. If they play like they did against the Titans, the Chiefs are going to put their foot down their throat, okay? If Burrow can't stand up for more than 3 steps, they're going to have a problem.
Yeah, this is the wild thing to me I think you and I were both in the same boat of when the Bengals drafted Jamar Chase. We were like, we get it, but you got to draft offensive lineman.
Yep.
What are you doing here?
Right.
What are you doing? We felt like it was not a terrible choice, but not a great choice at the same time with getting an offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
And Jamar Chase is blowing out expectations. He is significantly better than we both probably thought he was going to be, what I think most people thought he was going to be, and kudos to them. But yeah, you're right. The 9 sacks they took against the Titans really reared their ugly head because that offensive line was getting absolutely destroyed against a not overly healthy or good defense right now, especially in the front for Tennessee. So I don't have a lot of faith for what's going to happen to that offensive line against Kansas City. I don't know if Tyrann Mathieu is going to be back, but if Mathieu is back, that makes the scheme that Kansas City can put together significantly better than what they were able to put up against the Bills, because Mathieu can do a little bit of everything, right? He can be playing over the middle. He can come into the box. He can do a lot of fake stuff for you. He can cover up a lot of areas that some other players can't necessarily hold on to, which, again, Kansas City got exploited. Can we talk about Gabriel for a second? That dude, the UCF receiver that comes in, I mean, had a solid year, but the dude gets 4 touchdowns, setting a playoff record, and is wearing Escape from Tarkov cleats. I mean, kudos to that dude. How incredible was that? But I really do think the Chiefs end up winning this game. But it is what I want to see out of the AFC, because we're getting the Chiefs, who have solidified themselves. Patrick Mahomes has been a starter for 4 years in Kansas City. He's been in the AFC Championship game 4 years in a row with that. And now we're getting to see Joe Burrow, who's trying to become a major staple in the NFL and had the sad story of the injury, has battled and done the unthinkable in Cincinnati and building that team, because we both were laughing about how bad they were going to be this year. And then look at what they're doing. They're now in the AFC Championship game. No one would have thought Chiefs Bengals AFC Championship game this year. It just doesn't make sense. But I still got Chiefs by 15 on this one.
And you look at, it's the Patrick Mahomes, the established superstar quarterback, beating the guy that's, you know, trying to get up into his area in Josh Allen, and now he's going to face off against the next in that line, the next big quarterback, because believe you me, Joe Burrow is the real deal. If they ever get him protection, that dude is going to be a thorn in the Ravens, the Steelers, the Browns, the entire AFC, everybody. He's going to be a thorn in their side, especially if they can keep even two of the three receiving core of T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, and the other guy that never gets the ball anymore, Boyd. That never gets the ball anymore. Yeah. If they can keep them together, incredible what CJ Uzomah's been able to do this year. I want to talk about just past this game. You know what's really scary? The Bengals have top 5 cap room open next year. And they don't have any glaring holes outside of offensive line. They could literally draft right tackle, right tackle, right tackle, right tackle, right tackle, and just go, okay, one of you is going to turn out okay. That's what we're going to do with. So absolutely. Go ahead.
Do you remember the wild prediction I had earlier in the year? We were talking about Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams, and if they left Green Bay, I said the place I would go if I was Devontae Adams was Cincinnati.
Yeah.
Because you now have him and Jamar Chase, and then you have the other guys that can fall in line. That would be the scariest thing to happen in the NFL, and they have the money to pay that man. So God help us if that happens.
Can you imagine Devontae Adams, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins on the same offense? Again, with Joe Mixon, one of the best running backs, one of the most underrated running backs in the league, one of the leaders in yards from the line of scrimmage. And again, we're going to talk about CJ Uzomah, who has really stepped up his game this year for them at the tight end position. I'm with you. I think the Chiefs are going to win. I think it's going to be closer, because I don't believe in the Chiefs pass rush as much as I believed in like Tennessee's, and we saw what happened in Tennessee. I do think Chris Jones is going to be a problem for that offensive line. I do think that the Chiefs secondary, even without Tyrann Mathieu, is good. I can't wait to see Cincinnati's secondary and their linebacking core against Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill. You know, that entire group. Even, you know, Jerick McKinnon. Not enough people are talking about the job Jerick McKinnon is doing out of the backfield. My guy catches the ball and becomes electric immediately. Absolutely immediately. So, going to be a good game. I think that's the better of the two games this weekend. I have a weird feeling that LA, San Francisco is going to be one of those muddy, grinded out games. Whereas, I mean, Cincinnati Chiefs, I want 40. I want 45-45 is what I want. Yeah, give me that. But let's talk about the Chiefs and how they got there. One of the big things that happened with the Chiefs is they tied it. There was 24 plus points scored in the last 2 minutes of that game. The Chiefs win the coin toss in overtime, and the button doesn't work. There we go. Hi. And they end up scoring a touchdown on the first drive. Josh Allen, who just had one of the best quarterback duels we've seen in probably over a decade with Patrick Mahomes. Josh Allen doesn't even get to touch the ball. Does the NFL overtime rules need to change? And if you're going to change them, what do you change them to?
I probably have a different opinion than I think what you might take here. I don't think the NFL overtime rules are that bad. And here's my rationale for it. When you think about college overtime, right? College overtime allows the teams, I think they get it to 25
25-yard line, yeah.
So you get it to 25, and you essentially pick if you get the ball first or if you defer and get the ball second in that situation. Like 90% of the teams that win the coin toss in college elect to go second.
Right.
Because you have the advantage of seeing what the team in front of you does. If they get a field goal, cool. Well, you know what you can essentially do to put a package together, go for the touchdown. If they get the touchdown, cool. You now have an opportunity to possibly go for 2, depending on the reads you essentially see. I think we have a similar situation if you change the NFL rules to essentially that. It sucks because you don't get to see a team have the opportunity to go back. But at the end of the day, the Bills should not be blaming the overtime rules. The Bills should be blaming a couple of things. One, their defense in overtime. But even if you go before that, 13 seconds on the clock, you didn't squib kick it, And if you're afraid to squib kick it, you didn't kick it super high for a moonshot to keep it inbound so they couldn't kneel it and take some extra time off the clock.
You can kneel it in play and stop the clock.
Sure.
The Chiefs mentioned that.
But then you're kneeling at the 10 or the 15 or whatever, and that's extra additional yardage you're essentially working with at that point.
Right.
The fact that they didn't have some creative measure to take a little bit of extra time off the clock, to me, is more of a blunder than anything else. So I don't think the NFL rules need to change as much. Could there be some change to it? Yes, but I think making sure that both team has the ball to try to do something ends up being in longer games and weird scenarios, and I just don't know if it's going to be the solution people are looking for.
Here's the issue that I have with the kicking excuse, and I'll give what I think needs to happen. The second you start telling a kicker to change his kickoff, in terms of not the squib kick ends up giving them better field position. Okay, if you squib kick it. But if you could kick a high ball like that, the chances of giving a ball short at the 15 and letting them return it under worse circumstances for your coverage team who isn't used to cover that, I agree with kicking it through the end zone. I'm sorry, I do. Or what happens if you mishit it, goes out of bounds, they get it at the 40, now they only have to go 30 yards. Not even that in Butker's case. The other problem I have with this is this. We can blame the defense all we want. But for the last 10 to 15 years, the NFL has made every possible rule they can to make defense harder. You can't touch the receiver. You can't level guys across the middle anymore. You breathe on a guy the wrong way and you're getting a roughing penalty. You can't touch the quarterback unless it's between, his hip and his nipples. Maybe sometimes if you rub Tom Brady the wrong way, you get a stripper penalty. And he's like, woohoo, 15 yards. He starts twirling the flags on the sideline next to Bruce Arians just to show off. All right, that's my problem. Defense is incredibly hard, and all you've done nothing to help the defense over the last 15 years. You want an offensive game. You want your offensive stars to be the reason. So I'm not saying go to college. I don't like college overtime because I don't like going to the 25. I want them to drive the field. I want the defense to have a chance. But Josh Allen should not be sitting on the bench with his hands in his pockets going, yep, I just did all this for nothing. I think that both teams should get an offensive possession before overtime can be over. And what I mean by that is you kick off to whoever you want to kick off to, and I guarantee you're going to start seeing people defer that opening kickoff. Okay, The coin toss still means something. You kick it off. If they score, they score. Then you get to come down, and you get to kick off to you, and you get to score. If you get an interception, you now have possession. Game on. This field goal crap isn't it. And the thing that I love about this idea is if you're guaranteed a possession, how many more 2-point conversions do you think we start seeing in overtime? Because you're not guaranteed that team's not going to walk down the field on you and go for 2. I know Harbaugh would go for it. Harbaugh loves going for 2 points all over the place. Both teams, you have so many star quarterbacks. They are the centerpiece of your league. You have to give them an opportunity to star. Josh Allen is the star of the Bills, okay? He is the mega superstar of the AFC East. He is representing that entire division. Hell, he's probably the second best quarterback in the conference, depending on how you want to compare him and Joe Burrow right now. You have to give him a shot with the ball in overtime.
I hear you. I just think you cheapen the importance of defense, right? Like, I love the ability to say, like, they still have to drive the field. So you're letting a team go 80. Your defense is giving up 80 yards. And there's no like, oh, our defense should have done better. Like, that's on the defense, in my opinion. Like, I love the ability for like that first team to come out, the defense to shut them down, and all of a sudden the offense for the second team, or the second side of the ball, gets to come out and say, like, okay, all we gotta do is get a field goal or a touchdown here. Like, that, there's something thrilling about that to me. And just I think we run the risk of like the shootout mentality, because in the NFL, we know overtime, these guys are tired. The defense is already on pins and needles at that point. The refs are already trigger happy with pulling flags out. I just don't know. I don't know what the solution is. I know what we have right now is probably not the answer.
Right. I saw a lot of stats, by the way, just so the stats are out there. 52% of the time, the team that wins the coin toss in overtime wins the game in regular season. In the postseason, teams that win the coin toss since they changed the overtime rules are 11-1 with the Chiefs win. 11-1. Like, that is incredibly lopsided. And the problem is in the playoffs, you now have quarterbacks that are upper echelon, offenses that are upper echelon, echelon teams. I don't care who they are. There are my problem is this: there's so few 2000 Ravens. Like, how many defenses do you know?
Niners. It's the Niners right now.
But the Niners right now, but they're not they're defensive heavy.
But...
Yeah, they're not I mean, if I gave you the Chiefs versus the Niners, would you trust the Niners defense? I mean, I don't trust the Niners defense. Any team in the playoffs, you'd give them the playoff against the Niners defense. I'm still going, listen, one drive, I pretty much think they can figure something out. That's my problem, is the way offense is right now. It's so overblown. I mean, people complain about the amount of offense in Madden. It's realistic. Like, it legitimately is realistic, and we've seen that over the last couple of weeks and the last couple of years. The how much running gun there is, how much West Coast there is. I mean, who are the best running backs in the league? Derrick Henry and
Jonathan Taylor, you could argue.
Jonathan Taylor, who's more not known for between the tackle. He's known as being able to catch the ball. I mean, he can run the ball, don't get me wrong. But the guys the big stars, if you're not Derrick Henry, who is showing tread on the tire now, you're a receiving back. We're starting to get Cordarrelle Patterson at 6'2", 230, and Debo's
Austin Eckler.
Right, Austin Eckler, same idea. You're seeing tread for runners. That's why they're out passing more, getting in the open area, maybe get them out from getting hit so many times. Quarterback's the star. Let the star be the star. Let's see one possession a team, then we go from there. Still put the timer on the clock. I still want to see the clock on the time. I want to see people, run time down if they can. If you can run a 10-minute drive, go for it. But I think both teams need to have a possession if there's time on the clock.
Yeah, but I just also want to give a sense of appreciation for the fact that in 13 seconds, the Kansas City Chiefs ran 2 plays and got their kicker in field goal range. And that is the same amount of time that Dak Prescott ran a QB draw from his incredible offensive coordinator and head coach who don't know how to manage time, and they ended up losing the game in hilarious fashion.
Careful. If you put that on Twitter, someone will tell you it's Hold on. I'm sorry, GoodGameBro. That's completely different. Dak Prescott did not have any timeouts. And they should have run a quarterback draw. And did you see the referee bump Dak Prescott running to the line? Yeah, maybe if you didn't run a quarterback draw with 14 seconds, you don't have to worry about the referee bumping your center in the ass.
We them boys.
The Cowboys fan, and most of you Cowboys fans aren't that bad, but like the ones that are coming out of the woodworks, like the referee screwed us. No, Dak Prescott screwed you, and Kellen Moore screwed you. Hey, guess what? Guess what Dak could have done? He could have gone to his tight end and run a backyard play. You know who did that? Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce on the last play of the game. Kelce essentially, or not the last play, in the play that set up the field goal. Patrick Mahomes or Kelce went to him and said, "I'm not running that route." Kelce looked at him and said, "I'm going down the seam." And right before the snap, 2 seconds before he snapped the ball, Mahomes went out and yelled, "Kelce, go!" They have them both mic'd up. Kelce right down the seam, knew exactly what he needed to do, caught the ball, put it down, field goal, rest is history.
Well, the play before that was great too, because Kelce told Tyreek, like, I'm gonna go up even more, and you come right behind me for the bubble, and it's gonna be wide open. And they literally picked up massive yards from that. So Travis Kelce, the unsung hero for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, best tight end in the league. I mean, Mark Andrews. I'm gonna give Mark Andrews all the love he can. He's a Ravens guy and one of the bright spots. But dude, Travis Kelce is just the football sense that dude has. Talking about football sense, one of the absolute greats, Sean Payton, announced today that he would be retiring from football, stepping away from the Saints. And wow, couldn't have been a better time with the cap hell the Saints are in right now. Not saying that's a part of the reason, don't get me wrong, but really convenient time for Sean Payton. Sean Payton, known as one of the best coaches in the league, really one of the more innovative coaches in the league. What he's done with Taysom Hill over the years, reinvigorated some careers. Jameis Winston came there. Drew Brees, obviously, he brought Brees in when everyone thought Brees was done, and made them a huge Super Bowl threat year after year. People are underrating the fact that he also built one of the best defenses in the NFC every year he was there. Talk about Sean Payton, his decision to leave.
Yeah, man. To me, Sean Payton has been a fantastic coach in the NFL. He's done incredible things. I would disagree on what he's done with Taysom Hill from the quarterback spot, but from the other sides of the football field, I agree with that. But to me, I think this has a lot to do with the cap struggles they're going to be having for the next couple of years. Like the Saints have always, over the last probably 4 to 5 years especially, done this weird manipulation of the books and found ways to like get dudes into the contracts and get them paid, but also struggle with some other things. It feels like Sean Payton sees the writing on the wall where he wants to like have a reset. He wants to take a year off. And to me, this feels like Sean Payton takes a year off. Mike McCarthy has some more blunders. And all of a sudden, Sean Payton has a very short commute from his home where he's at north of Dallas to all of a sudden be the Dallas Cowboys' next coach in 2023. This is all this feels like to me. Sean Payton saying, I need a break. I don't have a good future for what's going to happen for the Saints next year. Rather than tarnish my name, I'm going to go ahead and retire now, maybe enjoy some guest broadcasting stuff, and then go show we them boys how to actually coach an NFL football team.
Oh, really? Is that what's going to happen? He's stepping away, and then he'll get pulled back in with the Jerry Jones money?
100%.
Yeah.
Jerry Jones already is literally salivating at the thought of getting rid of Mike McCarthy and his terrible clock management for Sean Payton. Imagine Sean Payton with Dak Prescott and a 2 running back system, assuming that Zeke can get things going. That's the Mark Ingram, Alvin Kamara.
He doesn't need a 2 running back system. He could run Tony Pollard. Tony Pollard is good enough to start and star.
But I think it benefits to have a guy more like they can't get rid of Zeke just yet because he still has a massive amount of money in his contract. So I think like you have 2 very good running backs. Tony Pollard is, I think, just as good as Zeke right now is what he showed this year. You can benefit wholeheartedly for it. It's again like Ingram and Kamara when he had them with Drew Brees, dinking and dunking and running goal line stuff with them. So
yep. He has he's going to end up with 152 wins, 89 losses, a Super Bowl championship, and was AP Coach of the Year back in 2006. He is the second longest tenured coach in the NFL, and the Saints are $66 million over the cap as of right now. Not to be fair, they were $100 million over the cap last year and found a way to get out of it. So it's not that big of a thing, but it is big enough where convenient times for Sean Payton to get out. And I agree with you in one piece. I do believe that he's not done coaching the NFL. I think this is more a stepping away from the Saints than it is retiring from the NFL permanently. And broadcasting wise, in the interviews we've heard from him and some of the other pieces he's done, I just don't see broadcasting being a real serious thing for him. Yo, no, I know. I get. No, I'm not saying to you. I'm not saying to you. I'm saying when he goes into, he's 100%. They're gonna bring him in for some X's and O's talk, but I don't think that he has that broadcasting vibe. That I bring to this show. I don't think he has that in him, and I do think he goes back to the NFL and coaches at some point sooner rather than later. I think this is more getting out of a hell position for him, so it doesn't tarnish a record that is pretty stellar in terms of coaching. So, moving on. Oh God, here we go. You ready? You ready? Because I have some thoughts. I have some thoughts. The Baseball Hall of Fame finalized today, and the only new member we will be seeing is David Ortiz. What does that mean? That means that Barry Bonds, in his 10th attempt, will be denied Hall of Fame unless he is brought in by the Today's Game group, and that'll be meeting next December 2022, as you hear this. David Ortiz deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. I'm going to say that as a person who hated Ortiz when he played. I was at the game that he beat the hell out of the bullpen phone in Oriole Park. I thought he was an incredible crybaby on the field. I think he whined every single chance he could. He gave a really good speech after some of the tragedies in this world, especially tragedies up in Boston. Fantastic talker. Listen, man, best DH of all time, okay? He deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. But dude got the same accusations on steroid usage as Barry Bonds, who was a two-way player and a Hall of Famer before any of these steroid accusations came out on him. Can you explain to me how in the world Barry Bonds did not get in the Hall of Fame?
Yeah, it's super simple. Look, you had a lot of slander there on Big Papi, so let me just go ahead and say Big Papi absolutely is not the villain that Mills sees him as.
I'm an Orioles fan. I apologize for my slander.
If you want some great stories on David Ortiz, by the way, Will Middlebrooks, former Red Sox player, has a fantastic Twitter account, and he's been sharing over the past couple of weeks leading up to the Hall of Fame voting some incredible stories that he's had personally, as well as what he just experienced in the locker room with David Ortiz, and talking about how he saw David Ortiz tested sometimes 3 times a week, which seems unbelievable. But sometimes 3 times a week after the first accusation of the rumored positive test that never essentially came to light. So it just essentially becomes a rumor and not official at that point. But it's super simple as to how David Ortiz got in and Barry Bonds did not.
Tell him the real reason.
David Ortiz was famous for being very jovial with the media. And you look at his post MLB career, he was doing broadcasting, he was doing appearances. He has done so much from a positive PR standpoint that any negative perception of him has been essentially erased, unless you're Mills, because, well, he can't get.
Well, because Mills looks through that crap. Because Mills knows that that the people that vote on the Hall of Fame are the baseball writers, not the players, not the coaches, not the people in the Hall of Fame. It's the baseball media, the people that Bonds rejected so many times. I want to remember, Barry Bonds is revered by teammates for being a great teammate. There are multiple accounts of how loyal he is, how awesome he is, how great he was of a clubhouse leader. But because he was a jerk to the media, because he didn't like the media, you can say whatever you want, whether it's his responsibility to be, to be good to the media. He doesn't have a responsibility to be a good person. He doesn't have a responsibility to answer questions or not be a smart ass with the media. He is the best hitter of all time, and he was a Gold Glove fielder at times. He had more walks than strikeouts. The dude had more walks than strikeouts in seasons. How is this dude held out of the highest achievement you can get? And people are going to be like, oh, it was steroids. It's not steroids. It's gatekeeping. And I say that as a just so we're clear, I know that gatekeeping gets thrown around a ton this time. By the way, if you throw around gatekeeping, screw you. Just so we're clear, you make a bad name and make it mean nothing. Anyway, baseball writers are literally gatekeeping on their moral high ground, and then they put their ballots out on social media so they can be like, oh, well, this is going to cause a stir. By the way, if you want to see my reasoning, here, click my paywalled article. Yep. Because I used to be a newspaper writer, and newspapers aren't a thing anymore, so I got to get paid on clickbait. That's all it is.
It's unbelievably frustrating for a lot of reasons. Look, some wild stuff here. Did you know that if you took every single one of Barry Bonds' home runs away from him and turned him into an out? I saw this stat on Twitter. I don't remember the exact source, so I feel bad for that.
Tell him.
But if you took every single one of Barry Bonds' home runs and turned it into an out, that he would still have a higher on-base percentage than David Ortiz by like 2 points, I think.
And I'm sorry, what did David Ortiz do for a living?
He was a professional hitter because he was a designated hitter at that point.
Yeah, did he touch the glove? Did he touch the glove? Did David Ortiz pick a glove up after he became the DH?
Not really. I mean, maybe a time or two, but it wasn't really because they wanted him to at that point. And I love David Ortiz, and he wholeheartedly deserves it. But I think it's important, Mills. A bigger travesty than Barry Bonds not getting into the Hall of Fame to me is the fact that Bud Selig is in the Hall of Fame as a commissioner. Bud Selig oversaw the steroid era. He was one that was a willing participant in it, knew what was going on with the McGwire and Sosa home run race that really spurred a lot of this. And he knows they were juicing and hitting balls 700 feet every single night and doing, elbow swings or whatever. Bud Selig gets a free pass from the same baseball writers that are giving Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, Alex Rodriguez, Andy Pettitte, all these guys, the same people that are giving all these guys flack for being part of the steroid era or having positive tests or not even having positive tests and just assuming they had positive tests because there's nothing documented on record. And they're putting Bud Selig in the Hall of Fame, the man who was a willing participant and benefactor of this era? It's unbelievable.
The dude that led the era.
Is a bigger travesty.
The dude that led the era. Let me just give you a couple of stats. You ready for this? This is the dude that couldn't get into the Hall of Fame for 10 years. 7-time MVP. By the way, 2 of those were in Pittsburgh before San Francisco, before any accusations. And then his first year in San Francisco, got an MVP. 7-time Gold Glove. 7-time Gold Glover, okay? Also, leads entire MLB history, of all MLB history, 762 home runs, leads everybody. 2,558 walks, leads everybody. 688. Let me repeat that number. In how many years? 22 years. 688 intentional walks in one season. He had
all bases were loaded.
By the way, 39 years old in MVP season. He hit 45 home runs, struck out 41 times. You know how many intentional walks? Intentional, not walks. Intentional walks he had that season. 120.
It's more than some people get hits.
People were walking him in with the bases loaded, giving up a run to the San Francisco Giants so Barry couldn't hit a bomb. And this is the dude that baseball writers have sat up on their ivory tower thrones and said, no, nay, you don't get to be in our old boys club. You don't get to be where we vote in. You know why? Because we have the power. Because we never played baseball. We didn't get to be a part of the athletes club. So you know what we're going to do? You were mad to us. We're going to take our ball and go home. Because that's what we do. Screw the Baseball Writers Association. I hope that today's game, I hope that crew puts him in on the backside of this so he's in that Hall of Fame, and I hope he becomes the most famous wing in the whole damn place because he deserves it.
Yeah, look, you can't have... My view of a Hall of Fame is when you're telling the story of the game or of that era or whatever, do you have to tell the story of this player? Like, are they absolutely essential? And when you talk about the history of baseball, you cannot talk about the history of baseball without talking about Barry Bonds. The same way I don't think you can really talk about the history of baseball without talking about Pete Rose. There are the Hall of Fame for a sport should never just be showcasing the positives of that. It should be telling the true story, right? We don't want today's history books where they're omitting things because they don't want someone to get offended for what granddaddy or great granddaddy or great grandmommy ultimately did. You should be telling the entire story of that and letting kids and parents and people relish on knowing the full story of what essentially happened in the most objective way possible. And again, it is a travesty that there are going to be kids visiting Cooperstown and not getting to see a Barry Bonds wing about one of the greatest baseball players to ever walk this planet. It's unbelievable.
I'm so tired of the Baseball Writers Association. Like I said, every time I saw another empty ballot, by the way, there are people turning in empty Hall of Fame ballots. By the way, Cal wasn't unanimous. Derek Jeter wasn't unanimous. I'm so done with the baseball writers. It is essentially the baseball writers saying, look at me. This is the baseball writers saying, look at me. And I can't wait for every one of them to pass away and lose their vote, because it's the only way they're going to lose their vote, because baseball doesn't have the balls to take it away from them. They'll be clutching their vote in the grave, and I will gladly take it away from them, throw it in the river where it should be, and then go back and make sure I urinate what they should be getting instead of a baseball vote. I'm sorry, that's the real truth. The truth is that's what they deserve. Every one of those blank ballots that was like, hey, look at my reasoning on my blog that no one actually reads, but we charge $19.99 a month for. If you want to read one article, it's not free. Go pay for it. We know what's going on. It's so dumb. Those gamer advantage glasses look nice.
Oh, we found our social media clip of the week. Thanks, Mills.
Well, I'm not gonna try your. No, we don't. We're using the other one. Oh yeah, you like that? I got the Twitch purple.
I will say though, I do hope at some point, not just baseball, but NFL, NBA, everybody, whenever a writers association is essentially, I don't know why I'm so wearing these, whenever a writers association is involved in the selection of athletes getting into a Hall of Fame, one, I think all votes need to be transparently shown, but cannot be shown on social media by the writers. They need to be shown by the actual institution, so they can be essentially looked at and compiled through a website and look to see like, oh, they voted X, Y, and Z. So it stopped farming for impressions or engagements, whatever at that point. But I also think every 3 years, those same writers or people that are on the panel that essentially vote for these players need to be up to be to have their ballots weighed against and say, are they being objective and fair, or are they being subjective and cynical or whatever that may essentially be? and look to remove them or continue a 3-year term. Just like you would elect government officials, I think the people that are voting for these people who dedicate their entire lives to a sport should be on a ballot that says, yep, you are not a ballot for the public, but a ballot by those institutions that say, yep, you are worth being on this board, or no, you have served your time and we appreciate that, but we're going to bring on fresh blood or someone with a different perspective or someone we believe has earned the right more so than they do to stay on that board.
Agreed. And it's the same thing as the NFL refs. The uptick in flags because the NFL refs get on TV. It's the same damn thing, man. Just attention from people that don't get it anymore. A lot of these writers are newspaper writers, man. They're people that used to get massive amounts of attention, and now they're scraping at the same thing. They're getting influencers, dude. Influencers get a ton of clicks over writers these days without journalism degrees. That's because we know how to. I say we, my TikTok's kind of blowing up. Not sure if you know this or not. But anyway, no, but because we understand how to connect to the younger audiences where they're still writing articles that are, designed to the baseball fan, the 55-year-old average age baseball fan. So, all right, let's go. Let's back off from an angry topic. Let's talk about sad but motivating, I would say. Today, by the way we're recording this, marks the 2-year anniversary that we lost Kobe Bryant. He left behind, obviously, his wife and his daughter in a tragic accident. There are not many athletes that we get to hear that leave behind a mindset with a name attached to it. Kobe Bryant did that. When you want to talk about influencers, athletes, teachers, everybody, they talk Mamba mentality, and that is the same thing that Kobe did after the famous playoff quote, job's not done. Yep. Hey, we had a great night, job's not done. Talk to me about Kobe's influence on this world and what he's left behind.
It's wild that we're 2 years out from that, right? I remember where I was literally at my desk. I was working on a video looking at this monitor, and my wife came in and said, Kobe Bryant just died? And I immediately was like, no, you fell for like a social media troll. Let me see your phone.
Right.
And she showed me her phone, and it was TMZ. And I was like, wait a second. TMZ rarely ever get something wrong. They're always the ones that are first to that. So I immediately pull it up, and I'm looking through, and it's just that's one of those athletes you don't ever expect to leave, right? We think of all these athletes that are bigger than dying or bigger than death or whatever at that point. Kobe was absolutely one of those people. I think for, people our age and such, Mills, we basically saw Kobe. For me personally, I remember when Kobe went to his high school prom with Brandy, and I'm like, oh my God, he's going to prom with the Brandy? And then we see that entire journey. Kobe, for a lot of us, was that player that we saw the first journey of his entire career, right? We heard the legacy of, the high school game where he faked sick in the first half and came out in the second half and dropped 50 points or whatever just because he felt like doing it against a really bad team. We saw everything from Kobe. We saw this young, cocky kid with his afro coming out in the NBA who didn't have a great first game, but was still going in the hole and attacking and shooting at will. We saw this perseverance. We saw also the fall of Kobe in a terrible moment for him where he had a terrible judgment and did something that he obviously should not have. And then we saw the rebuilding of Kobe, where Kobe really dedicated his life to rebuilding himself and making sure that he stood for a positive platform. And the end of Kobe's life, the thing that he was standing for was not the NBA. It was for girls and women and the ability for them to play basketball and having sort of, notoriety for doing that and being celebrated and really building up women's sports, especially women's basketball. And to me, that was a great full circle moment for Kobe. I think when you look at his life and what happened and sort of his transgressions to then at the end of his life be spending time building up women's sports and really trying to right his wrongs, I think in some way. Kobe was an incredible basketball player. He was an incredible talent, incredible person in a lot of ways, despite his transgressions. And it just is one of those things where you never thought someone like Kobe's stature would ever be gone. And it's tough to believe that it's 2 years, already at this point, but we have all the clips on YouTube and social media. We are always reminded by Kobe from current players and even just regular old people like us talking about Kobe all the time. So gone too soon, obviously at that point.
His on the court memories will always be remembered by sports fans, but it's like you said, it's not when you're on top that you be judged. It's what happens when you fall and lift yourself back up. What legacy do you build after that? That's where the judgment happens, and that's where Kobe made his judgment. And Kobe is judged as a great, great man. I still remember him talking about the LA Sparks. I found out about the LA Spark because of Kobe Bryant speaking up about them. So unbelievable man, unbelievable family man at the end as well. Like you said, he rebuilt a lot of that. So very, very somber, but again, we celebrate. We don't mourn that. So wrap us up, big man.
Yeah, I mean, great episode. This is episode 50 for us on the show. I know we've been teasing it, but I promise we have some big stuff coming. It may not be next week or maybe the week after, but probably the week after that. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But we're going to be teasing out some great stuff. The third co-host, we're lining things up for that, so it'll be coming very soon. We have some other cool stuff for the show that I'm not going to talk about just yet, but we'll maybe tease that and then hopefully have a quicker turnaround from where we tease it to when it actually happens. But we're still working on pulling all those strings. But you already know the
long
deal.
tease. That's what we're good at. The long tease.
Yeah.
Long tease. The short tease is never good. Things explode and you don't get them back. Like it's the anticipation. It's you play long enough. You're like, hey, this is gonna happen, and they're like, hey, what's going on? You build it up, and then you're like, once it's over, it's just kind of like, oh, okay, well that happened. Well, that's not gonna happen with us. Because we're going to tease you for a long time. And then afterwards, we're going to build back up. Okay? We're already high. We're going to build back up.
Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Family Life with Mills and Not Good Game Bro. I'm Good Game Bro. That's Mick Foley. Catch you guys in the next one. Be safe, be smart. Tell somebody you love them. We'll catch you guys in the next one.
Ciao.